At 4:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Donald Trump picked up his phone. He did not call his Secretary of State. He did not call his National Security Advisor. He opened Truth Social, and in doing so, he triggered the most catastrophic diplomatic rupture in the history of the United States-Canada relationship. Canada had refused. Not quietly, not privately, publicly, deliberately, and without apology. Mark Carney told Washington that Canada would not support American military positioning against Iran, and Trump's response was not diplomacy. It was punishment, energy cutoffs, social media bans, and a threat so extreme that 3 NATO ambassadors were on emergency calls before a.m. This is not a trade dispute with a tariff number attached. This is an American president threatening to starve his own northern neighbor of energy in the middle of a global conflict, and the neighbor looked back and laughed. In this breakdown, I am walking you through exactly what Canada refused to do, what Trump threatened within 90 minutes of that refusal, what a classified NSC memo reveals about the real Ask Washington made of Ottawa, why banning Canada on social media may be the single most strategically incoherent decision of this presidency, and what this rupture means for every American filling their gas tank this week. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how we got here, who is really behind this, and what it means for your money, your country, and the next decade of American power. Subscribe or follow me right now and turn on notifications, because what I am about to show you, mainstream media will not touch for another 72 hours. Let me take you back to March 19, 2026, at 11:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A secure call was placed from the White House Situation Room to Rideau Cottage in Ottawa. It lasted 58 minutes. According to 3 senior officials with direct knowledge of the conversation, Trump asked Carney to do 3 specific things. First, allow American naval logistics to use Canadian Arctic passage routes for Iran positioning. Second, issue a joint statement naming Iran as an immediate threat to Western stability. Third, commit Canadian armed forces to a standby coalition framework. Carney listened to all 3 requests. Then he said no to all 3. According to a person inside the room who spoke on condition of anonymity, Carney told Trump directly that Canada would not be drawn into a military confrontation it had no role in designing. He said Canada supported diplomacy. He said Canada would not support escalation. And then he said something that reportedly made the room go silent. He said, "Prime Minister, this is not Canada's war." The call ended 90 seconds later. What happened in Washington over the following 72 hours was not strategy. It was rage dressed as policy. A classified memo stamped "No Fern" began circulating inside the NSC on March 21st. That memo, according to 2 people with direct knowledge of its contents, outlined what one senior official described as a pressure architecture against Ottawa. The memo had 4 sections. The 4th section was titled, and I want you to read this carefully, "Leverage through Dependency Exposure." That section outlined exactly 2 tools: Canadian energy supply disruption and information environment restriction. In plain language, cut their energy and ban them online. Those were the tools a sitting American administration put in a classified document against its closest ally and trading partner. Not against Iran, against Canada. By March 23 at 7:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the decision had been made. Trump would go public. No diplomatic back channel. No final warning through ambassadors. Public, immediate, and maximal. At 4:52 a.m. on March 24th, the posts went live. And the world woke up to something it had never seen before. Receipt number 1. The energy threat is economically self-destructive. Canada supplies approximately 60% of American crude oil imports. That is not a rounding error. That is the foundation of American energy independence as the administration defines it, according to 3 senior analysts at the Energy Information Administration. Disrupting Canadian energy supply to the United States would cause domestic gasoline prices to spike between 34% and 47% within 90 days. That is not a number from an opposition think tank. That is an internal government projection. The average American family would pay an additional $290 per month in energy costs before summer. The administration built an energy threat that points directly back at American consumers. Receipt number 2. The social media ban has no legal framework, according to 2 people with direct knowledge of discussions inside the office of the White House counsel. No legal instrument currently exists that allows the executive branch to ban a foreign nation's users from American social media platforms. A senior counsel, speaking anonymously, described the proposal as constitutionally incoherent. The platforms themselves received no formal directive as of AM Eastern Standard Time. X, Meta, and YouTube have not complied. They have not even responded. The ban, as announced, exists only on Truth Social. It does not exist in law. It does not exist in practice. What it exists as is theater. Expensive, alliance-destroying theater. Receipt number 3. Carney's response was coordinated across 5 capitals. According to sources close to the Canadian Prime Minister's office, Carney's team began making calls at 5:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Calls went to London, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, and Brussels. Each call carried the same message: we are not complying, we are not apologizing, we are asking you to stand with us. By 8:30 a.m., the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary had issued a statement expressing full solidarity with Canada's sovereign right to determine its own foreign policy. That statement was not spontaneous, it was coordinated. What Trump intended as isolation became, within 4 hours, a demonstration of exactly how many allies were willing to stand beside Ottawa and against Washington. Receipt number 4. The Iran rationale does not hold. A senior State Department official, speaking on condition of anonymity, told sources that Canada's participation in any Iran coalition framework was never militarily essential. Canada's strategic value to the operation, according to this official, was symbolic. Washington wanted the photograph. It wanted the joint statement. It wanted the optics of a unified Western Front. Carney refused to be a prop, and Trump, unable to accept that refusal as legitimate sovereign decision-making, reached for punishment. The punishment has now cost Washington more credibility than Canada's refusal ever could have. This is not just about Canada refusing to join a coalition. This is about what that refusal revealed. It revealed that the American pressure playbook, the one built on dependency and economic threat, no longer produces automatic compliance. Not even from the country that shares 5,525 miles of border with the United States. Not even from the country that buys more American exports than any other nation on Earth. Here is what that means for you directly. If the energy disruption moves from threat to policy, gasoline hits $5.4 per gallon nationally within 60 days. Home heating costs across the Midwest spike before next winter. The Federal Reserve, already walking a knife's edge on inflation, faces a supply shock it did not model for. Mortgage rates, which millions of Americans are waiting to fall, go up instead. Your grocery bill, your commute, your retirement account, all of it moves in the wrong direction. Because a president threatened an ally over a refusal to join a war most Americans do not want either. Let me be clear. The strategic logic behind threatening Canada over Iran's support is the logic of a losing position. Here is why. Iran has been the subject of American pressure campaigns for 45 years. In that time, Iran has not collapsed. It has not capitulated. It has not fundamentally changed its behavior under maximum pressure alone. What has changed is the coalition willing to maintain that pressure. And this morning, Washington just made it significantly harder to hold that coalition together. Every European foreign minister watching this confrontation is doing the same calculation. If Washington will threaten Canada over a single refusal, what happens when we say no? The answer to that question is now visible, and it is not reassuring. The Trump administration's dominance framing requires that every refusal be punished, but punishment only works if the target cannot absorb the cost. Canada can absorb this cost. Canada has pipelines to Tidewater. Canada has CETA. Canada has willing buyers for its energy in Asia. The threat assumed a dependency that no longer exists at the level the White House modeled. While Washington was threatening, others were moving. At 6:14 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the European Union's foreign policy chief posted a 2-sentence statement. She expressed the EU's full respect for Canada's sovereign foreign policy decisions. She made no mention of Iran. She did not need to. At 7:03 a.m., China's foreign ministry spokesperson, in the daily press briefing, noted that Canada's position reflected the legitimate right of independent nations to chart their own course. Beijing does not defend Western democracies on principle. Beijing defends opportunities. And Canada, increasingly isolated from Washington, looks like an extraordinary opportunity. By 9:45 a.m., 3 Canadian liquefied natural gas development consortiums had received unsolicited expressions of interest from Asian energy buyers. The energy Trump threatened to cut off is being rerouted before the threat is even formalized. That is how quickly the market moves when policy becomes unpredictable. That is how quickly American leverage evaporates when it is wielded without precision. According to sources inside the administration, the atmosphere in the West Wing by AM was described by a senior official, speaking anonymously, as a war room that forgot to plan the war. 3 people with direct knowledge of the morning's internal communications said the social media ban announcement caught senior platform liaison staff completely off guard. No briefing had been given. No legal framework had been prepared. One senior advisor reportedly learned about the ban from Truth Social at the same time as the public. By 8:15 a.m., the White House Communications Office was fielding calls from every major technology company's government affairs team. None of those calls had answers waiting for them. A memo was being drafted to explain the legal pathway for the ban. According to one person inside the room, the memo was still blank at 10 a.m. The announcement existed. The policy behind it did not. Scenario 1, quiet withdrawal. Within 14 days, the energy threat is quietly not implemented. No formal reversal is announced. The social media ban is never operationalized. Both threats simply fail to materialize. Carney does not claim victory publicly. He does not need to. Every government on Earth will have already noted the outcome. Scenario 2, partial escalation and economic blowback. Washington moves to implement partial energy restrictions. Canadian countermeasures activate immediately. American refineries in the Midwest, which are specifically configured for Canadian heavy crude, face acute supply disruption. Gasoline prices spike $1.1 per gallon within 45 days. Congressional Republicans from oil-dependent states begin breaking publicly with the White House. The pressure reverses direction. And it reverses fast. Scenario 3, the permanent realignment. Canada formally begins redirecting 30% of its energy exports away from American markets within 18 months. New pipeline infrastructure, already in planning stages, accelerates toward Pacific Tidewater terminals. The EU and Canada deepen CETA investment protocols to include energy security frameworks. Japan and South Korea sign long-term Canadian LNG agreements. The energy dependency that made Trump's threat possible in 2026 no longer exists by 2029. Washington will have spent 3 years trying to punish Canada. And Canada will have spent 3 years building a world that needs America slightly less. That world does not reverse, not for any president, not for any policy. It is simply the new map. I am watching whether the energy restriction moves from Truth Social to a formal executive order within the next 10 days, whether any major social media platform receives and acknowledges a formal government directive to restrict Canadian users, and whether Republican senators from Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio begin publicly opposing the energy threat as refinery disruption data reaches their offices. Mark my words, the historians will not write about this as the day Trump threatened Canada. They will write about it as the day an American president reached for his 2 most powerful tools against his closest ally, and both tools bent back. What we are watching is not a tantrum. It is a demonstration of the limits of American leverage. When the person on the other end of the threat has done the math and decided the answer is no, Canada decided the answer was no on Iran, on energy coercion, on being managed. And the rest of the world is watching very carefully to see if that decision costs Canada anything at all, because if it does not, the next country to say no will not hesitate nearly as long. The question I cannot stop thinking about is this: when your closest ally stops fearing your threats and your rivals start offering them deals, what exactly is left of American power?